The slap landed. It wasn't just a blow, it was an insult, a final judgment, Damien's sentence on me without a moment's hesitation. The sound of it ripped through the air, cold and sharp like a knife through flesh. I didn't stagger, didn't fall, but I could feel the heat burning my cheeks, the numbness rising to the top of my head. Everything was silent. Eyes were on me, some in surprise, some in concern, but no one dared to speak. No one intervened. No one defended me. I could see Bianca standing in the distance, her lips curled into a triumphant smile. She had succeeded. I turned my head slowly, looking straight at Damien. He was still standing there, his hand still raised, his breathing ragged as if he had just let go of a pent-up rage. His eyes were filled with contempt, as if I were no longer the wife he loved, but a disgrace, an unforgivable blemish. "Do you have anything to say?" Damien asked coldly, each word like a knife cutting through the air. I had so much to say. I could scream that I didn't do it. I could have pointed my finger at Bianca, accused her, made her admit that it was all an act she had put on. I could have screamed at Damien, asked him what our love had ever been, asked him how he could have trusted another woman over the woman he had built it all with. But I said nothing. I just stood there, silent, because right now I knew that no words would change his mind. He had made up his mind before I had a chance to defend myself. He didn't need the truth. He didn't need me. Damien stared at me, waiting for a rebuttal, for anger, for despair, but I didn't give him any. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I didn't beg. I just looked at him, my gaze calm to the point of fear, and then I turned and walked away. No one stopped me. No one called out to me. I could feel everyone's eyes on me as I left the room, my footsteps echoing on the cold marble floor. I am Liliana Moreau, the wife of Damien Moreau, a successful businessman, president of Moreau Enterprises, where I spent my youth building and developing. I am not only the wife behind him, but also the one who laid the foundation for the success of this company. I used to believe that there was companionship between us, that love and trust were unshakable, but I was wrong. The first signs of betrayal appeared subtly and unnoticed. Damien became more distant. The affectionate looks gradually disappeared. The conversations became short and cold. If before he always asked about my work, discussed the company's long-term strategies with me, now that interest was reduced to superficial, polite sentences. I tried to convince myself that it was just busyness, that he was under pressure from work, but a woman's intuition told me that something was wrong. The arrival of Bianca Lorraine, Damien's new secretary, was a big change in my life. Bianca was young, beautiful, and always looked impeccable. She worked beside Damien every day, knowing his schedule better than I did. At first, I didn't mind. I had never been the type to be unreasonably jealous, because I believed in the solidity of our marriage. But then gossip began to creep through the company corridors. Worried looks from employees, half-jokes about the close relationship between my husband and his personal secretary. Whenever I walked into Damien's office unannounced, I always felt something was wrong. Bianca sat too close to him, her eyes gleaming with smugness, her smile always somewhat challenging. And Damien, the man I once trusted completely, made no secret of his preference for her. The looks I couldn't help but notice, the meetings that dragged on into the night, the business dinners I wasn't invited to. I began to realize that I was being pushed out of my own life, out of the company I had worked so hard to build. Important decisions were now made by Damien without my input. Financial reports, expansion plans, all passed through Bianca's hands before reaching me. She was no longer just a secretary, but seemed to be gradually replacing me in every aspect of the company. But I remained silent. I needed proof, needed a clear reason to face the truth. I did not want to be a suspicious and weak woman. However, the more I observed, the more I saw that their relationship had gone beyond the boundaries of work. Bianca no longer hid her defiance from me. She began to show arrogance whenever she faced me, throwing suggestive words at me, provocative looks. She knew that I was suspicious, but it was the certainty of Damien's protection that made her fearless. She wanted me to feel redundant, that I no longer had a place in my husband's life. Then, one day, I overheard a conversation I never wanted to hear. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but as I walked down the hallway to Damien's office, I stopped in my tracks when I heard Bianca's voice from inside. "You don't have to worry about her. Just get her out of the company and everything will be so much easier." Get me out of the company? I stood there, my heart stopping. Damien didn't object. He didn't get angry. He didn't deny it or mention that it was impossible. Instead, he fell silent, then calmly replied, "We have to do everything cleanly. She still has shares." I didn't need to hear any more. At that moment, I understood that all my suspicions were correct. They didn't just betray me in love, they also wanted to push me out of the company that I had worked so hard to build. They wanted to get rid of me, to make me an outsider, so that when I lost everything, they would continue to live in their own world, with no one to stand in my way. Anger flared up inside me, but I didn't rush into the room to question him, didn't scream for justice right away. I knew I needed to calm down. If I reacted instinctively, I would be nothing more than a betrayed and angry wife. I needed more. I left quietly, but in my mind a plan was forming. If they had set a trap for me, I wouldn't just walk in without warning. I would wait, let them do whatever they wanted, and then, at the right moment, I would make them face their own betrayal. I loved Damien with all my heart, spent the best years building everything with him, but love can't be built by just one person, and if he had chosen to betray me, I wouldn't let myself be the loser so easily. Did they think I would be eliminated? They didn't know that they would be the ones paying the price. I knew Bianca and Damien wouldn't stop. Once they had a plan to eliminate me from the company, they wouldn't wait too long to carry it out. But I waited, waiting to see how far they would dare to go. In the days that followed, I continued to maintain my composure. I still went to work, still kept my position as if nothing had changed, but deep down, I knew it was just the calm before the storm. I could feel the eyes on me, Bianca's secretive but calculating glances. Whenever I passed her, her smile was always a little contemptuous, as if she had already won, and then the moment came. That morning, I walked into the office as usual, still keeping my composure. Damien wasn't there, but Bianca was there, busy as ever, or at least trying to be. I could see that she was waiting for something, her eyes occasionally glancing my way, but I pretended not to notice. Around mid-morning, I left the office to go to the bathroom. It was a normal moment, nothing to be suspicious about. But I didn't expect that in just a few short minutes, Bianca would turn it into the crux of her scheme. When I returned, the atmosphere in the office seemed a little different. A few employees were standing in a huddle near Bianca's work area, looking curious. I didn't think much of it, just continued walking to my desk, but as soon as I sat down, Bianca's voice rang out loud and clear enough to silence the entire office. "Where's my ring?" I looked up. She was standing in the middle of the office, one hand on her other wrist, her expression tense but calculating. "Everyone, I just left the ring here. It's a very important gift. I can't lose it." I said nothing, just watched. The others began to murmur, some stepping closer to see what was going on. Bianca continued, her voice firmer this time. "I can't let this go like this. If anyone has taken it by mistake, please return it now." I saw a few of the staff exchange glances, some bowing their heads, some avoiding Bianca's gaze, but no one spoke. And then she said what I had expected. "If no one claims it, I think we need to check. I don't want to suspect anyone, but I can't let this go unnoticed either." At that moment, I knew she had entered the most important stage of her plan. I looked at Bianca, and when our eyes met, I saw the satisfaction behind her feigned concern. An employee stepped forward, seemingly reluctant. "You mean, to search?" Bianca sighed, as if she were also troubled, but nodded. I had no choice. I remained silent. I had nothing to worry about because I knew I had done nothing wrong, but at the same time I knew exactly what was coming. Several other employees began searching the area around Bianca's desk, flipping through papers, opening drawers. Nothing. The ring wasn't there. And then a voice said, "Maybe? We should check everyone's bags? The room seemed to freeze for a moment. I could see some of the employees looking uncomfortable, but no one dared to object. Bianca nodded slowly, as if she hadn't wanted to do this, but had to. I'm sorry, but I really have no other choice. One by one, everyone opened their bags, their coat pockets. Nothing. I sat there, waiting, and then it was my turn. I stood up, opened my bag without hesitation, and at that moment, I heard a gasp. Here it is! All eyes turned to the person who had spoken. An employee was holding the ring in his hand, the ring that Bianca had said she had lost, and it was found in my bag. The air became so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat. Bianca pretended to be in disbelief, her hand covering her mouth, her eyes filled with astonishment. Liliana? That's my ring. I didn't reply. Whispers began to rise. Some people backed away, as if afraid to get involved in the situation. I looked around, and then my eyes fell on Damien, who had just entered the office at that moment. He looked at the ring, then at me, and without any further proof, without any explanation, his hand shot up. A slap landed squarely on my face. The room fell silent. I didn't turn around right away. I just felt the heat burning my cheeks. Felt everyone's eyes on me. Damien didn't give me time to speak. His voice was as cold as ice. Do you have anything else to say? I took a deep breath. I had so much to say. I could have said that this was a trap, that I didn't do this, that Bianca had set it all up. But I didn't. I just looked at him silently, then turned and walked away. I didn't need to defend myself. I didn't need to explain, because I knew that one day the truth would reveal itself. And when it did, there would be no undoing what they had done. I walked away, leaving behind the prying eyes, the judgmental whispers, and Damien's cold silence. My cheek still burned from his slap, but the pain was nothing compared to the coldness that crept into my heart. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. Even without looking, I could feel Damien's eyes on me, eyes filled with anger, disappointment, and most of all, contempt. Without excuse, without a moment to pause to consider, he had judged me as a sinner. And the cruelest thing was not the slap. The cruelest thing was how he believed Bianca without hesitation. I walked into my office and closed the door, but the noise outside still echoed in like waves. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew that everything was going according to Bianca's plan. Less than 5 minutes later, the door opened. I didn't need to look up to know who had entered. Damien. He slammed the door behind him, the sound like a cold gunshot piercing the air. I stood still, saying nothing, just waiting. I knew what was coming. I knew why he was here. Damien didn't beat around the bush. His voice was as sharp as a newly sharpened blade, each word falling like cold cuts. I didn't expect you to be this low. I remained silent. Stealing? That's ridiculous. Are you so destitute that you would do something like that? He laughed, but there was no warmth in it. When did you become like this? I closed my eyes for a moment. Part of me wanted to ask, do you really believe I would do that? But I didn't ask. I already knew the answer. Damien didn't need proof. He didn't need an explanation. A simple play by Bianca would be enough to turn him against me. You think I'll let this go? Damien continued, his voice filled with indignation. You've embarrassed me in front of the entire company. You think I can accept a wife like that? Only then did I raise my head, my eyes meeting his. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't try to defend myself, because I knew that no matter what I said, he wouldn't listen. I looked at the man in front of me, the man I once loved, the man I'd shared so many dreams and ambitions with, but now, the man in front of me was no longer that man. In front of me was a man blinded by doubt and pride, a man who no longer had the patience to listen to even a word from his wife. Damien took a deep breath, as if trying to contain his anger, but then he pulled out a piece of paper and slammed it down on the table. I want you to sign this. I looked down. Divorce papers. My prediction was right. I knew it would happen sooner or later. But I didn't think it would come so soon. Less than an hour after Bianca framed me, less than an hour after he had attacked me in front of everyone, he was ready to end it all. He had made his decision, and there was no room for hesitation in that decision. I stared at the paper in front of me. I could see the words printed on it, the cold legal terms, but they were all blurred before my eyes. The only thing I could see clearly was our names, mine and his, laid side by side at the top of the page. We had been one, now we were just two separate names, separated by the dry words of the law. Damien said nothing more. He didn't need to. It was all too clear. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake. I didn't ask him again. I didn't ask for an explanation. I just signed my name. As I put my pen down on the desk, a silence fell over the room. Damien looked at me, as if waiting for something, a reaction, a plea. But I gave him none of those things. I simply stood up and left my office. Outside, the company was still in a tense atmosphere. I could feel the eyes on me as I walked down the hall. I could hear the whispers, the furtive glances exchanged between the employees. But I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Because at that moment, I knew that this wasn't the end of me. No, this was just the beginning. They thought they had won, but they didn't know that, when the truth came out, I would be the only one standing. I left the company in silence. My steps were slow but not hesitant. I heard the whispers behind me. I felt the eyes on me. But I didn't care. I had accepted their judgment, had let Damien believe what he wanted to believe. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue, because I knew that the truth didn't need to be proven quickly. Some truths just needed time to reveal themselves. I returned home, packed my things in silence. I didn't shed any tears, nor did I let myself get caught up in the melancholy. Everything I did was decisive and calm. If Damien wanted to get rid of me, I would let him think he had succeeded. I left the villa we had called home without looking back, leaving it to him and Bianca, to the two people who had betrayed me without hesitation. The days that followed passed in silent waiting. I did not protest, did not try to contact Damien or the company. I let things play out as he wished. From the outside, people probably thought I had lost, that I had accepted my defeat, but in reality I was just waiting for the right moment to clear things up. On the day of the divorce hearing, I walked into the courtroom with a calm demeanor. Damien was already there, sitting across from me, his face cold and proud. He did not mind my presence. To him, this was just a formality, a final step to completely remove me from his life. Beside Damien was his lawyer, a man with a sharp face and a confident voice. When the trial began, he immediately launched into arguments against me. My client has suffered betrayal from the defendant, a woman who once had honor but lost everything when she was involved in theft in her own company. Your Honor, my client requests a divorce and renounces all rights to the defendant. She no longer has any right to claim any part of the assets of the company my client is running. I did not object. I let them talk. Let Damien listen to those words without a doubt. I could see his eyes filled with complacency. He thought he had won. But then my lawyer spoke. Before we continue to divide the assets, I would like to present some important documents related to the ownership of Moreau Enterprises. A thick document was placed on the table in front of the judge. Damien glanced at it, still calm, but I saw his fingers unconsciously tighten on the table. The judge flipped through the document, reading through each page. The atmosphere in the courtroom gradually became tense. Each word, each number, each clause in the contract gradually revealed the truth. Moreau Enterprises did not belong to Damien. I was the founder. I was the majority shareholder. I had let Damien run the show all these years, but on paper, control had never really left my hands. I looked at Damien. He no longer had the confidence he once had. I saw his face tense, his hands clenched into fists on the table. The judge finished reading the document. As presented, Moreau Enterprises is legally owned by the defendant, Liliana Moreau. Based on the facts, the plaintiff has no right to a partition or a waiver of her rights. I could hear Damien breathing heavily. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. From being in control, he was now left with nothing, but it wasn't over yet. I was waiting for the most important moment, the moment when all the lies would be torn apart. My lawyer stood up and placed a USB drive on the table. We would like to present a video clip extracted from the company's security camera system on the day of the incident. I didn't need to look at Damien to know that his whole body had just frozen. He hadn't expected this. The big screen in the courtroom lit up. The image came into focus. Bianca appeared on the screen. She'd walked into the bathroom just after I left, furtively taking my ring and quickly stuffing it into my bag. It was recorded without a single flaw to deny. No one said a word. The courtroom was silent. Then, I heard Damien's sharp intake of breath. I turned to look at him. His face was pale, his eyes filled with panic. He had believed in Bianca, had protected her with all his might, but in that moment it all fell apart. Bianca was a liar, and Damien had been wrong. The truth I'd been waiting for was finally revealed. No excuses, no explanations. It was all self-evident. I looked at Damien one last time. He said nothing, and could say nothing. I stood up and left the courtroom, leaving behind a man who had lost everything, because from the moment he chose to believe the lie and turned his back on me, he had lost. I walked out of the courtroom, leaving Damien behind in all his shock and despair. There was no call, no struggle. He just sat there, silent, facing what he had done. I didn't need to turn around to see what his face looked like. I didn't need to see the loss in his eyes, because I felt it as soon as the truth was revealed. It was the price of betrayal, of the wrong choices he had made without hesitation. In the days that followed, I no longer cared about Damien or Bianca. I continued my work as if nothing had happened. Moreau Enterprises continued to operate, continued to grow as it had always done under my leadership, but now I was no longer the one standing in the shadows. I was no longer the woman abandoned or discarded. I was the real owner, the only one with the right to decide everything. The company was still in an uproar over what had happened in court. The news spread everywhere, from the smallest apartments to every corner of the office. No one could hide their surprise. Those who had whispered about me could only remain silent now, because the truth was enough to shock them. No one dared to question my right to stand in this position. I was no longer a betrayed wife. I was the master of this empire, but Damien did not accept that truth easily. I knew he would come to me. I had predicted it from the moment he realized that things had spiraled out of control, and just as I thought, a few days after the trial ended, he appeared. Damien stood in front of my office, no longer the proud and powerful look he had before. For the first time in years I saw him with a different look, the look of a man who had lost everything. I did not invite him in. I let him stand there, waiting, the way I had waited for him to listen to me. Damien opened his mouth, but no words immediately came out. I saw the hesitation, the difficulty in his movements. Finally, in a voice hoarse with exhaustion, he spoke. He apologized. He said he was wrong, that he shouldn't have trusted Bianca, that he shouldn't have doubted me, shouldn't have let his pride blind him to the truth. I heard it all, but I felt nothing. I used to think that if this day came, if he truly repented, I would feel satisfied. I used to think that I would be happy to see him fall, to see him realize everything he had lost, but in reality I only felt empty. Apologies can't change the past, can't erase the wounds he caused, can't change the fact that he chose to betray me when he had the chance. If he really loved me, if he really cared about me, he wouldn't have waited for the truth to come out before he realized his mistake. I looked at Damien one last time, and then I turned and walked into the office, closing the door behind me without a word, because now I didn't care about him anymore. But the price Damien paid did not stop there. I was not the only one who decided his fate. The company's board of directors, the shareholders, the people who had trusted him, all of them saw Damien for what he was. They had seen the downfall of a man they had trusted, and in a crucial meeting right after the trial they had come to a final decision. Damien Moreau was removed from the board. He was no longer part of this company. No more power, no more status, nothing to hold on to. And Bianca, the woman who had stood behind him, who had thought she could replace me, had no better end. No one wanted to keep a liar in the company. No one wanted to keep a woman who had used people's trust to set people up. Bianca was fired immediately. I wasn't there when they left. I didn't need to see it. But I knew how Damien would feel when he walked out of the building he believed he owned. He would feel empty. He would feel lost. Because he didn't just lose me. He didn't just lose the company. He lost himself. I used to think that maybe at some point in the future I would forgive him, but now I know that I don't have to. Because Damien is no longer a part of my life, I moved on. And he will forever be in his shadow, with regrets that can never be undone. Life is a series of choices, and sometimes a wrong decision can lead to irreversible consequences. My story is not simply a story of betrayal, of the pain of a woman betrayed and trapped by her husband, but also a lesson in trust, patience, and how one can stand up after being pushed to the lowest point of life. I lost a lot of things in the moment Damien believed my lies and turned his back on me, but the most important thing I did not lose was myself. I did not let pain control my life. I did not let betrayal define me, and most importantly, I did not let hatred blind me. What I want to convey to all of you, those who are following this story, is the power of resilience and the value of truth. 1. Don't let others determine your worth. There are times in life when you will be judged, misunderstood, accused of things you did not do. There will be people who will turn their backs on you without any proof. They will believe the words of others more than they believe in you. But that does not mean your value is reduced. You do not need to rush to prove yourself to people who are impatient to listen. Remember, the truth always has a way of revealing itself. The important thing is to stay strong, not letting other people's doubts shake your belief in yourself. 2. Be silent when necessary, but do not let anyone take away your voice. I chose to be silent when Damien insulted me, when he believed in Bianca without verification. I did not say anything, did not argue, did not try to plead. But that silence is not weakness, it is preparation. I know that if I speak up at that moment, I will just be an angry woman trying to defend herself in vain. But if I wait for the right moment, the truth will speak for me. Learn to control your words. You don't always have to scream to defend yourself. Sometimes, just be patient, stay calm, and let the undeniable evidence do the work for you. 3. Not everyone deserves your forgiveness. After the truth was revealed, Damien came back and begged for forgiveness. He realized his mistake, but that didn't mean I had to forgive him. Forgiveness isn't always a sign of nobility. Some people don't deserve it. If someone betrayed you once, they'll probably do it again if given the chance. Don't let your own weakness keep you in a cycle of hurt. Forgive if you feel it will free you, but never forgive out of pressure from others or out of pity for the person who hurt you. 4. When you lose everything, it can be a time to start over. You may have thought that losing someone, losing a job, losing an opportunity means you've lost everything. But that's not true. Sometimes, the biggest losses open doors to new opportunities you never thought possible. I thought that when I left the company, when Damien betrayed me, I lost everything. But it turns out, I was just walking away from what was no longer worthy of me to take back what was truly mine. If you are in a similar situation, don't panic. Don't let bad things cloud your foresight. Remember, when one door closes, another opens. And sometimes that new door leads to a much better place. 5. Always take control of your destiny. If I didn't have shares in the company, if I didn't have clear legal documents, I might have been eliminated. If I didn't prepare in advance, I might not have been able to stand after all that happened. The lesson here is never let others have total control over your life. Whether it's love, work, or any aspect of life, you always need a backup plan. Never let others have all the power in their hands. If you give everything to someone without holding anything back for yourself, one day you might be left with nothing. Be strong, always have a plan B, and always keep a stake in every relationship you have. If this story has inspired you, if you find it valuable, I hope you will take a moment to subscribe to my channel. I am not only sharing my story, but also creating a space where people can learn, share, and grow together. Please hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss the next content. If you find the lesson in this story useful, please share the video with your friends, family, or anyone who might need a word of encouragement, a little hope in life. We never know who out there needs to hear these things. Your small share can help someone get up from the pain, can help them find themselves in the most difficult times. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Thank you for being here. Always remember, you deserve better, and no one has the right to take away your worth.